It really depends on the day, honestly. Sometimes I walk in and I don't know what I'm going to expect, but sometimes I have a planning day where I have just my meetings and I'm meeting with parents, I'm meeting with teachers, collaborating. Do the best you can until you know better. When you know better, do better.
Welcome to Spotlight, a show from School Z where we shine light on school leaders who are making a difference in their communities. I'm your host, Avnish, and today we have a very special guest joining us. She's a licensed professional school counselor with a passion for supporting students' personal, social, emotional, and academic success. Please welcome Meghan Bell from Crieve Hall Elementary, Nashville, Tennessee. Say, hey, Megan, thank you so much for joining us today. We are very excited to have you here and talk about your role as a school counselor at your school. So why don't you just give a little background of how you came about this role and how you got into this?
So I started out in this role because in undergrad I majored in psychology and I had a minor in child and family studies. I always knew I wanted to be in the helping field. Didn't know if I wanted to be in education yet, but I knew I wanted to help others. I had a passion with working with students, just with the things that I've volunteered with when I was in high school and the things I was involved in undergrad and college. And then I took a course my junior year of college, and we talked about all the different roles of counseling. And then we talked about school counseling. And I was like, okay, this is the perfect fit. It's a little bit of psychology. I get to work with kids, and then I also get to work in a school setting. So after I finished up undergrad, I went and pursued my master's in school counseling at Tennessee State University. My undergrad was at University of Tennessee. And then that's, that prepared me to where I am. I started out as a exceptional education paraprofessional, and that prepared me, that put me in the realm of education. It's important to work with different students of different diverse populations. So working with exceptional education was a great firsthand experience in education. And when I finished, while I was obtaining my master's and finishing it up, I started working in the charter schools, being a substitute teacher. They called that a guest educator. So that helped me gain experience. Also, while I'm getting my master's, I worked at various schools in the public school sector, getting my practicum from experienced school counselor. So when I finished up my master's, I got into school counseling. It's my 5th year as a school counselor, but right now I'm obtaining my EDS in educational leadership at Lipscomb University. So my next steps in the realm of school leadership would be being a feature admin leader, working in policies.
Nice.
I'm really passionate about diversity and equity and making sure students of diverse populations are seen and heard and represented as needed.
Very good. Excellent. So you said you are pursuing further leadership opportunities. So what does your role look like? Let's say once you have these credentials, do you go into the same counseling path further, or do you have a more leadership path as in school superintendent or beyond at the state level?
I think it will be a combination. Okay. So as a school counselor, my role is to foster the needs of students academically, social, emotionally, and in their college and career paths. Okay. But in leadership, it's a little different. So yes. My job role will be a little different than a school counselor, but, my passion, that won't change.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be leading adults and I'll be leading students.
Yes.
So that's how it'll be looking a little differently, looking at academic data, but also looking at behavior data and also making sure I'm instilling good programming and making sure students' social, emotional needs are met.
Very good. Amazing. So those of us who really have, I have a background in education from India and I never had a counselor in my school. So those of us who are new to this role, can you describe what does the role look like and what are the responsibilities in a school?
Sure. So as I said, my role is to make sure the needs of students are met academically, social, emotionally, and also making sure I'm instilling college and career goals. But to just go a little bit more in depth of what that looks like. So my role is a licensed professional school counselors. And if I know it's new to some, but back in the day, school counselors were known as guidance counselors. And guidance counselors focused on more vocational studies studies for students in the high school end, making sure they're graduating, making sure they're getting those credits, more of a sit down role. Now it's kind of enhanced in the 21st century.
Hmm.
We're called school counselors now because now we're actually instilling counseling skills. So on a day to day, sometimes I'm meeting with I have a caseload. I meet with students one on one,
Hmm.
actually counseling, providing counseling services. Also, I'm teaching classroom lessons on character development, focusing on SEL skills, which is social emotional learning, SEL skills such as relational skills, self management, self awareness, to name a few. Small groups. I meet with
Yeah.
students in small groups.
Hmm.
Building upon those skills, and those small groups can be teacher referral, that can be parent referral.
Okay.
They're for students that are struggling with certain social skills and need extra support. So that might be a friendship group. That might be students that need enhanced coping skills. It might be students that are struggling with self-confidence. So implementing those, and then also I'm hands-on in collaborating and consulting with parents and consultation meetings or in our data team meetings. And in those meetings, that's when we're figuring out what students need. First, we're looking at their academic and behavior data, and then we're seeing, okay, what students need additional support
Okay.
and how I can provide that support as a school counselor. So if they're not performing the best in classroom, you have to look at the student as a whole. So I'm also providing behavior support. So that can be with the multi-tiered system, implementing like tier 1 and tier 2 interventions. So tier 1 interventions would be interventions that all students have
Yes.
in the classroom setting that teachers can implement and other support staff and educators can implement. And if we're going into tier 2 behavior interventions, those are interventions that I can help assist students with. So that could be like check-in and check-out. That's like when a student comes with the mentor teacher or even me, the mentor counselor, during the beginning of the day, and we're adhering to different behavior needs. If they're meeting the goals, they're rewarded with a positive incentive. So that's an
Yeah.
example of a tier 2 intervention. And tier 3 is a little bit more intensive. So that could be the counseling services or a specific intervention in place for students that need more support.
Got it. Yeah, I can totally see how challenging it may be sometimes. And you said you are in elementary school, right? So I have a son who is going to high this year for middle. So he has been on a private side. He's been very shy. So we have had some cases where we have taken some help from counselor in elementary. So talk about some challenges. I'm pretty sure when you are counseling a student, then you parents would get involved as well. And there is always, I mean, do you also interact with parents and engage with them in terms of how, in some cases I have seen literally in my son's school that there are challenges which has to be met in terms of talking to some parents. So do you have any experience to share where there was a difficult situation which you have handled with parents, and in terms of how to message the need of a counseling?
I would say a difficult situation I dealt with a parent is, a student that had transferred to a new school, and sometimes at a different school, a student's experience might not be the same as their new school. So this parent didn't have the best experience at that school
Okay.
with her student gaining support or actually understanding what a counselor actually does. Because when we're thinking about mental health, sometimes there's preconceived ideas of what that may look like. And sometimes we look at mental health and think about it being negative more instead of it being a more positive
Hmm. Yes.
experience. So, that parent had experienced a negative experience. And for me, it's important to advocate for my role and make sure not only students are feeling hurt, but also parents. So for me personally, I had to build that rapport. Even if they're not answering the phone at first or answering the email, still being intentional and not giving up
Yeah.
and calling and making sure they're understanding that
Mhm.
I care. I care for them, and I want to understand what are the needs of their student, because parents know the child best.
Yes.
I work with the student every day, but they see their child at the end of the day
Yeah.
and on the weekends. So just constantly building that rapport, I think that was helpful in that parent relationship. That's important for educators to build trust, not only with students, but also with parents. So I try to make sure that I not only am being seen with students, but also being seen with parents and creating those opportunities, if it's a phone call, it's an email, but also creating those opportunities in the programming I create as well, so we can have parent interaction in the school.
Perfect. Yeah, and I totally appreciate how challenging it can be sometimes and how well our counselors handle the situations. So let's segue it into the entry into the counseling. Let's say there are a lot of young professionals who may want to, who aspire to get into this role in the schools. So can you talk about some qualities what they should look for, or like, I mean, how do someone decide that, oh, this role is good for me, let me just get onto this path of becoming a school counselor? So let's say like but 10-15 years younger you, what would you tell those people who are trying to decide which way to go?
So I would just say be encouraged. It's okay not to know. This comes from somebody that in undergrad changed their major like 3 to 4 times. It's okay not to know, but also like seek out mentorship in your community, or also mentors in your college as well. If that's in the College of Education, ask questions like what does the role of education require, or how do I get into that field? If you're not ready to do that, if you're not ready to pick your major just yet, it's okay to seek out information from the College of Social Work, the College of Education. But also, if you're in undergrad, volunteer, seek out organizations that work with kids. If that's Big Brother, Big Sister, that's one organization. But there's many, depending on where you are. I can name the ones in Nashville, but whoever I'm talking to, you might not be in Nashville.
Yeah.
But there are so many organizations where you can get involved with kids.
Yes,
and if you're getting involved with organizations with kids, you might say, okay, this is a good fit, and this might not be a good fit, but you're learning and you're still making an impact. And if you choose the education realm in college, then after you finish, you might have a degree in education, but you might have a degree in social work or psychology.
Yes.
After you finish, you can get your foot in the door by seeking out opportunities in education that don't require a master's. That could be maybe you're being a paraprofessional. You're working one-on-one with the teacher. If you're not ready to make the steps to be a complete teacher, that's great experience to prepare you to be a future school counselor. I think that really helps me being in the door, working with kids one-on-one, and not just working with kids in the regular setting, working with kids in the exceptional education setting. Even though it's challenging, it prepared me to be where I'm at now. But there's a lot of different positions and things that you can do to see if it's a good fit for you. But I definitely say volunteering, networking, reaching out. Those are the keys to help you figure out if education, if school counseling is the right fit for you.
Got it. So I think on this segment, just one last question. So how does a day in school look like for you? Let's say a typical day when you are getting into the school. I mean, how does the day unfolds, and what happens in those days?
It really depends on the day, honestly. Sometimes I walk in and I don't know what I'm going to expect, but sometimes I have a planning day where I have just my meetings, and I'm meeting with parents, I'm meeting with teachers, collaborating. That day where I have my meeting days, but then on the regular days when I'm interacting with students, I'm teaching classes. So I'll say a normal class day, sometimes I'm teaching 3 to 4 classes during the day. Some counselors are on a related arts rotation. So for my school, I'm on a 4th and 5th grade related arts rotation. So I see those students not every single day, but every single week, teaching those skills, those SEL skills of like self-management, self-awareness. I'm really big on teaching those character traits. So that's the day where I'm teaching those classes. And also during those days, I'm seeing small groups. I'm meeting with students one-on-one. I'm reacting if there are student crises or teachers need extra behavior support. That's my day.
Got it. Yeah, this gives me so many pointers to take this conversation. You said that it also gives you a way to do social emotional, to kind of connect with social emotional learning and character traits, right? So one of the things what we do at the School Z is we deal with a lot of 21st century skills, and I think these personality traits are one of the core, is a set of skills like leadership, public speaking, creativity, curiosity. So all of these are very important, and they are clubbed together as 21st century skills. So do you see your work interfacing with enhancing 21st century skills of students as well? Because see, my understanding about this whole elementary and middle is that there is nothing specific directly done to kids to teach some of these skills. This learning happens in peripheries, where let's say you are doing a math homework but it is difficult and challenging, so you are building grit and perseverance, right? So is there any direct interface where you think about these skills, and while in your interaction with students there is a measure or something happens towards some of these personality traits?
All those leadership skills that you talked about kind of align with like the SEL like core competencies, which are like self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. So, for me, when I am teaching my lessons, I try to intentionally focus on those skills so they can have those personality traits. So starting with my guidance lessons, like I'm teaching those lessons to hone on into those personality traits. But, it's not just on the school counselor to be teaching those skills. It has to be school-wide.
That's correct.
Teachers are responsible as well to make sure we're having those mindful moments. We're having morning meetings where we're asking great questions to hone on to those skills,
Yes.
Tying everything in. If it's the programming, if we're talking about diversity, we have to school-wide implement those strategies so kids can get a good understanding of what that is. Because if we're talking about diversity, that's a part of self-awareness, and that's a part of self-management for kids to understand themselves and why they're unique and knowing that it's okay. And if we're talking about it in those lessons that I teach, and if teachers are talking about it, then they're going to be amazing citizens when they eventually graduate from high school.
Yes.
And they are going to know what empathy means, what it means to understand others' feelings, not just talking about it on the basic level, but really diving in. I'm an elementary school counselor, but it's important to start early. So they're going to be prepared for middle school and with those skills, and then the middle school skills they're learning with SEL is going to prepare them from high school, and then they're going to be a amazing adult in the future. But hopefully that makes sense what I'm saying. But
Yes, it does.
everybody has to dive in so it can be successful in implementing those traits for students. The parents, the teachers, the counselors, the support staff, the admin, for sure. Everybody. It's a
and I think what we see is the challenge generally becomes that some of these things are very subjective. So I think at one end you have academics where it's objective to assess and to do the assessments and to see how kids are doing. But some of these skills, like 21st century skills, are subjective, and it may be difficult to really measure them. So I think that I can see how challenging it can be. And again, they say that whatever can get measured can be managed. And that's where the challenge comes in, that you can't really pinpoint and say, oh, this person is getting better on a shorter scale of time. So very good.
Yeah.
So very good.
I would add in, like, I know it's like difficult to measure, those personality traits, but you can measure like students' academic achievement, and you can tie in like, okay, these students had this culturally responsive SEL program at their school. Okay, how was it beneficial? And understanding how academics and SEL go hand in hand. I think that's research that's needed, and
that's true. That's true. So is there any, again, pardon my ignorance on this, but is there any research which says that higher SEL increases academic performance as well? Oh, okay.
Yes. I'm actually researching right now SEL's impact on diverse populations.
Wow, that's nice.
And I'm focusing on culturally and linguistically diverse students, students that are English language learners, students from underserved populations, students that are incarcerated while they're in school.
Wow.
And how SEL impacts those populations. SEL impacts all students, but we want to definitely have a culturally responsive and relevant SEL for underserved populations.
Got it. So we may have to bring you back once your research is over to learn more about it.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, well, I think this is good. So, thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights with us here. Do you have anything to tell our audiences? I think this podcast is going to go to multiple of our customers, audiences, and everyone. So, do you have anything to say to them before we wrap up here?
I was just saying, I love this quote by Maya Angelou: "Do the best you can until you know better. When you know better, do better." It's always imperative to continue to learn, continue to seek information, and hopefully, the information I gave to you today will be helpful on your educational journey.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been an honor to have you on the show, and we really appreciate the work you're doing to make our kids better and produce a better younger generation. Well, there you have it. Thank you to all of you for tuning into this episode of Spotlight. We hope you found this conversation educational and inspiring. Stay tuned for more interviews with exceptional school leaders. Until next time, remember to shine your light and make a difference in the community. Thank you.